Seeing we have a quorum, I'll call the meeting to order. Let me do a roll call. Steve?
Here.
Rachel, absent. Pam, not here. Mary Pierce?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Megan?
Here.
And I'm here. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Or getting online. I guess you didn't go anywhere. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2021-42, a resolution declaring the Civil War Historic Commission shall meet on March 23rd, 2021, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Steve? Thank you.
Second.
Megan? Thank you. Okay, roll. I'll take a vote on that. Steve Bacon.
Yes.
Rachel is not here. Mary Pierce.
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, this meeting will be a virtual meeting. The public may call in to conference meeting to listen at 1-312-626-6799. Meeting ID is 996-0040-0927, passcode 720752. Public may email comments to planningintake@franklin10.gov to be provided in full to the commission and included in the minutes, but not read out loud in their entirety during the meeting. Email comments will be accepted until 4 p.m. on the day before the meeting. The meeting video will be available for public viewing 24 hours following the meeting on the City of Franklin YouTube account. There were no comments, no questions submitted. Okay, good. We have basically two things on the agenda. Let me give you some kind of update on where we've been. We did not have a February meeting. The basic reason was I didn't think it was, and Amanda agreed that it was in everyone's interest to meet, since we were still working on getting through what we had talked about in January, and there was really nothing further to discuss at that time. We've since gotten quite far with in two avenues. One is looking at various sign options that we have. We met with the city engineers and talked to them about what types of signs we can install that are sanctioned or approved by TDOT. And then based upon what the subcommittee wanted to do at the January meeting, we've made some contacts. One of our members has made some contacts with the design firm to give us some advice and direction on where we could go with a sign program that is more unique and more kind of identifying the city of Franklin. So we have basically two options, and Amanda sent those to everyone late yesterday afternoon. We summarized the two options. And so I'd like to start out by just discussing the two options. What we're going to ask for is input from everyone on where everybody thinks we ought to be going with this. The two options are quite different, and they will lead us to potentially finishing as we desired in schedule, or possibly delaying that if we want to do a design option, which is not a problem. but we just need to be aware of the issues and the ramifications of pursuing in that direction. Let's talk about the TDOT option first. Yeah, this is the sign options that we sent out late yesterday afternoon. The TDOT option, we met with city engineering. The TDOT option, in a nutshell, if I can just kind of wrap this up into one statement, is basically your average road sign in a brown color, which is a standard TDOT brown color, that would indicate all the wayfinding for the city. Let me go through the specifics. It's less creative, obviously. The historic wayfinding signs will be like all the road signs in our streets. They will be rectangular. They can be brown, but there is a standard TDOT color of brown that, and it can't vary if we go with the TDOT standard. And it will have the TDOT standard white color font, arrow style, and border. And so it'll be a brown sign. Signs, one thing that's important, and I think on both these options, is we are sticking to the fact that the signs will be made and installed in-house. We think that is a big plus. It's something that BOMA was very insistent upon when we met with them early, to keep the cost down. And so that's important. And we think that this, we have not met with the sign shop, but we think that obviously a TDOT standard sign would easily be fit this qualification. TDOT will review the signs, but since they are standard signs, we think that review will be quick and kind of cursory. The approval process will be pretty much as we had scheduled. The subcommittee and then the commission will make a recommendation to BOMA. BOMA would approve the program. At that time, TDOT would review and offer their comments and approval, and then the program would be implemented. And like I said, I think this kind of fits within the schedule that we had talked about, and the fact that we would go to BOMA by the end of 2021. And so it would be within 2022 when we start the sign program. The other option, which is a very viable option, is a design option. This option will provide the opportunity for having a unique identity for the Franklin historic wayfinding signs. A design professional will work with a design professional for advice and assistance, and will develop a unique shape possibly develop a unique shape to the sign. We have the option with this to pick a brown tone that is slightly different than possibly the TDOT standard. And so it'll have a distinctive appearance. We can also pick a font, an arrow style, and a border that fit that sign, that we would decide. Now, all of that, because it is a road sign, we don't believe it's in the best interest of the city and everything to get really wild with a design. We're talking about, I think everybody's envision, at least everyone I've talked to's envision is just a sign that's not just a standard rectangular sign, possibly with a little pizzazz to it, but not something that's, a wildly triangular or that type of shape and that type of thing, to where it would be something that's hard to read and that type of thing. And that goes for the brown color or the fonts and that type of thing as well. Once again, the signs will be made and installed in-house. So the signs must be designed with this in mind. And we would work with the sign shop to make sure that what we would recommend would be certainly doable by them, capable of being done by them. This option will require TDOT review and approval, which could be ominous. It has to, and I anticipate that process, and Amanda, correct me, or Kelly, correct me, that process could go back and forth with revisions and us coming back to them and that type of thing. So it could be a pretty arduous process. To give some idea of scheduling, once again, the subcommittee and then the commission would make a recommendation to BOMA. BOMA would approve a design option for the sign and that type of thing. So we would go through that, and then it would go to TDOT for review, potential revisions, and eventual hopeful approval. Possibly that would require us to go back to BOMA for re-review and reapproval, and then the program could be implemented. I'm not sure, this could take another year, possibly. Is that everybody's thinking, Amanda, Kelly?
Well, I was reaching out to our traffic engineer for more information. He was out of the office last week, so I did hear from him yesterday. He was in spring break like most folks. So my understanding is that there could be some flexibility, a little more so than perhaps we understood before, but that would be really limited to whether or not we do a green or a brown sign. The preference for TDOT would be a brown sign, and they may allow a header for branding, but it's not something that we can guarantee. It depends on how it looks and, going forward, how it meshes with the rest of the standards that TDOT applies. But yes, that's my understanding otherwise.
Okay. Now we're trying, please don't misunderstand. Amanda's not, I don't believe Kelly is, I don't believe Amanda or Kelly are trying to sway the committee one way or another. There's pros and cons to both ways of doing this. What we want to do with the subcommittee is to lay out the options and have some really conscious discussion about which way we ought to be going. And at this point, at this stage, it's not saying we should be working just to TDOT or just to a design option. It's really kind of laying out that we're pursuing two different options and getting feedback from the subcommittee so that at a future meeting, we can make a decision as to which way we want to go. So this is not a milestone in the fact that we have to make a decision today and that type of thing. We want to lay all these options out to the committee so that we start working in a positive direction to actually with both of these options, because there's very little to do moving forward with the TDOT option since it's within their standards and type of thing, but to get feedback from everybody on both of those. So I'm not trying to discourage one way or another and that type of thing. We just need to be aware of the issues with each of those. Now, I know that, Mary, if I may say this, you have talked to a design professional with the signs, and if you want to report on that progress, please go ahead.
Okay, Amanda, can you pull up the sign you found that we both thought was? Okay, Amanda and I had a discussion, and other than in cases base looking like our streetlight base is successful in other applications, it wouldn't be, but kind of a unique shape of what we were looking at and a unique color. And I talked to Signs First, and they would be willing with the parameters that I laid out to make us up some a presentation like this, some type of prototype. They do not want to get into coming to meetings because we are, they're paying their design professional, but to have interact with 2 or 3 of us and come up with a prototype and then present it to us, they are willing to do that. Many of you all might know Mike Alexander with Signs First. Their designer that I work with is Anthony. So it would just be, I don't think we want our across the front cattywampus lettering or anything like that. But, and Amanda and I talked about the dark kind of, I don't know what to call it, black green that's used throughout the city a lot. So it's just whether or not we want to go through that process. I will say that I think the more we make things the same old vanilla, the more we make Franklin look vanilla. I was just down in Columbia on Sunday, and if you look at the banners they've done down there and the way they've hung the banners, and then come look at Franklin's, you kind of go, ouch for Franklin. So I think it would be at least worthy of talking to TDOT about what troubles are we going to encounter if we go with something that says a uniqueness to the project.
Thank you, Mary. I do have a little bit more information I can share with you all, if that's okay with Rich, regarding the what the sign shop can do and some examples of what a TDOT approvable sign is versus a branding sign that may have some issues that is already in place.
Okay.
Is that something you'd like to see? Okay, so as far as this sign goes, I did talk to our streets team. Their initial comments were that it does not meet NUTD or CD, which is the municipal standards on which TDOT standards are based. Now, TDOT standards are a little more strict overall than the federal standards, but in some cases. But in this case, I was told that our sign shop could probably fabricate any shape. We would just need to order that shape. It's not something we have on hand, like the shape right here, because I did ask specifically about this sign, noting that would probably be a single pole instead of one pole. The poles are something that would be a special order. This type of pole would probably be around $300 per pole in order to move forward. The color and the font, of course, is more of the hang up as far as going through the TDOT process, as Rich mentioned. So we do think that this could be fabricated in-house. It would just be more expensive than the typical sign because of the style of the post, which I do think Ms. Pierce is really keen on.
No, I'm not actually, Amanda. I think that pole looks good when it's a single pole. I think it looks bizarre when it's
I
on
just mean the style. Yeah.
the pole on the with the 2 feet or whatever you want to say. I think the one, when we have one post, use it. When we have 2 posts, go to a plain design. But I do like the finial on top, yes.
Okay.
Well, okay, so what I understand you to say, Amanda, is that they don't have that shape of metal.
That is not something
In-house.
we order in typically,
Right.
because we typically order signs that are rectangular for TDOT standards.
Yeah, so they would have to buy a stock of metal that's shaped the size, like the
Whatever
sign
shape
would-
we decide. Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to change screen now. This is an example of a sign that doesn't meet all current TDOT standards. I did ask for one that I could show you though, so you can get a sense of how it might look. So this is a green sign. TDOT standards require green or brown. A brown is far more encouraged for recreational purposes. And so this is just a typical example that you would see in Nashville. Now they don't pay attention to the ordering and with the arrows, because that isn't correct. It would be more with the left or the right listed first, I believe, and the right arrow would per NUTCD standards be over here. But this is a prototypical sign that would be approvable with some alterations by the state government. Now, this sign is one I'm sure you all have seen, and we've had some questions about why it is that, you know, we do see some of these types of signs, but for whatever reason, I'm having trouble pulling it up. For whatever reason, you know, they're in place, and what we want to do isn't necessarily something that's easy to put in place. So we've all seen this. I think everyone's been at this exact location, right? So in Chattanooga, Adam mentioned that he's not sure if these signs were approved by TDOT or not. He cannot, you know, comment on whether or not they were approved. We had nothing to do with these signs. They're in a whole different municipality. But he did say that he believes that TDOT may be okay with some kind of consistent sign header or graphic at the top. But this is a lot of text to take in, especially at this type of location. So that's why he's wondering whether he just can't confirm whether or not it was approved. And this isn't to put, you know, a community on the spot or anything. It's just to give you some information about what the expectation may be. This would probably be too wordy. And that's because we have been recommended to put no more than 2 to 3 locations on a sign, especially since this has a header. It does take up more space. And so that's just, you know, 5 lines, 6 lines of text to read through while you're traveling.
I think that sign looks cluttered myself. I think the font is is almost too small for the sign. I have trouble finding what I'm looking for. You know, I certainly see Riverfront, and I really see the hospital and the parking symbol.
Mhm.
But then when I look for the ballpark or visitor center, you know, I'm really jumbled up trying to find it, and I'm trying to drive too.
Mhm.
That seems to me like it's a really cluttered sign.
Well, that's our traffic engineer's opinion too, that it's just got too much on it. But do note that, you know, it does have it's a green guide sign. So green and brown is what's typical for TDOT for guiding. And it looks like it's a mix of 2 different types of fonts. I know this is not something that we've talked about so much at a subcommittee level, but it does have a mix of a type B and a type C font. So it does use fonts and font sizes that are TDOT approvable. It does have the international symbols used appropriately for parking in hospital. And the arrows meet the NUTCD standards for the style and the placement as well. So this is something that has a lot of approvable aspects. It does have too much wording more than likely. So this is just to give you an idea of something that may be approvable through a TDOT level. But we would probably, you know, our community wouldn't be, you know, doing the fish route. Probably we would be doing something a little different. This works very well for downtown Chattanooga. So ours might be a little more plain because we do want it made now. So I don't know that something with this type of shape would be easily fabricated in our sign shop.
You mentioned putting a header on some of these signs. If we were to do that, would it just say historic Franklin or historic downtown Franklin, or was there any thought as to what that would say?
I think that's what Rich is bringing up today, is that we have 2 different options by which we can move forward, and we would need some sort of decision by the subcommittee as to how it would like to move forward, so we can work with our sign shop and or the design professional that Mary has pulled into the conversation to see what our, what we'd like that design to be.
I'm of the opinion that we need the design option. I mean, I agree with Mary about, even if it's small, unique changes that we can make with our sign shop or somebody else's, I just think we should go that route. I'd hate us to have just a regular TDOT sign.
I agree with that too.
Well, I think that we've taken this long to come up with the copy that we need to really be careful about what the design is. Because once they're there, we're not going to take them down anytime soon.
Thank you, Pam. And welcome, Pam. Hi. Megan, you have thoughts?
I mean, I'm in agreement with having somewhat more of a designed sign. I think it'll add character because Franklin has character. And I think, thinking about, spending the money on these signs, I think the vast majority of residents or visitors they're going to utilize these signs more if they see them, if they're intriguing, if they catch your eye. So I would hate for us to go through the whole process, putting in a standard sign and maybe, not having it catch people's eye, and it just being more of just a standard sign that somebody could just blow right past. So I love the idea of having something with a little more character. And I also feel like if we've come, I know we've taken a while to kind of go through all of this stuff and having all these discussions. And I think, I know that this could be a more of an extended process just with all of the things that we're talking about doing with these signs. But I think that we've come this far, and I wouldn't mind, stretching it out if it were going to be something really magnificent that we could bring to the city.
Okay. Now, Amanda, do we need to formally vote on this? I've heard from everyone here, and I agree as a member of the subcommittee that I think to pursue a design option with a unique identity is what I envisioned all along for this program. It wasn't a typical TDOT brown sign. And I spend a lot of time in national parks, and the national park sign is so well known. It almost looks like just a normal sign, but I keep thinking in mind that somewhere along the line in the national park system, they were having this kind of discussion. Some committee somewhere was having this kind of discussion and said, we need to come up with our own style. And if you look at the national park signs, they are very much their own style. Now, they may be copied a lot and used synonymously now as the standard, but they came up with their own unique design, which has been similar designs have been used all over the country. And so I just think a unique design is very important. Now, do we need to take a vote of the committee or?
The subcommittee doesn't need to take a formal vote on this because you aren't making a recommendation at this time to the full commission.
Okay. So I hear unanimously that the subcommittee would like to pursue the design option, at least from a standpoint of taking it forward and seeing where we can take it and how good we can make it and keep it within the parameters. Am I right? Keep it within the parameters that we've talked about all along, but put some pizzazz to the sign as opposed to just the standard TDOT sign. Mm-hmm. We can always back up to the TDOT sign.
And, given some of the information I shared today, depending on how it's designed, it may be something that can be approved by TDOT. If TDOT's open to a header. So I think that, clear and Classy's the way to go. It sounds like what everybody wants to do. And maybe if it's not overly ornate or designed with something that would be entirely different from the norm, then that might be something that would keep us on track moving forward, or not extend it to the extent that, you know, a full design change would, as far as timeline. I
I
think
don't hear
Ms.
anyone
Pierce-
talking about overly ornate. That doesn't seem to me to be Franklin.
Okay.
Franklin to me is kind of classy, subtle classy. Well
And
said.
we don't want to get rid of the readability either, which, you know, we want a clean looking sign. I think we've
Right.
all said that.
And I think that, you know, the state would never approve anything otherwise. So that's a very good point. Ms. Pierce is working with a design professional, and he would like some guidance on what we'd like that sign to look like, so we can put up together a mock-up for us. So if that's something that we could talk about now, then that might be something that can be prepared for the next meeting, perhaps.
Let me talk first what I think is the easiest thing, and that is it's some shade of brown color. Is everyone in agreement with that?
I don't know.
I'm not in agreement with that.
Okay.
I think we at this point could look at what something looked like in a green, you know, a dark Franklin green. I think an option could be a dark brick brown red color, or the brown.
Okay.
Is there, and forgive me, because I'm not 100% familiar with the branding, all of the branding standards and colors for the city of Franklin, but is there anything that says that we have to or should follow those kinds of brand standards or colors when we're looking at creating or developing signs throughout the city?
So the state follows some municipal standards that are developed at a federal level. I don't remember what the acronym stands for entirely, but it's MUTCD, and it's construction standards and specifications for signs. I know TDOT has a little bit more of, is a little more strict in some places, which they're allowed to do. But ultimately, you know, my understanding is that a brown or a green would be the preference in order to get this approved at a state level, which is our ultimate goal. That's not to say that's what you have to bring forward. If we were to do the option number 2, like Rich described, then we would need to petition for that. But it's more likely that it would be approvable in a less, more approvable in general, than also maybe more approvable in a lesser amount of time if it were a green or a brown.
Now, when you say brown or green, I'm nitpicking here, but I'm just trying to really understand. Is that a specific brown or a specific green, or brown tones or green tones?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I know that there is a specific brown that we're all familiar with, as you mentioned, for National Park Service signs. And I do think that's the brown that is standard per se, but I don't know. I can find out if the nuances of color within those ranges are things that, you know, TDOT would be unlikely to approve. It's my understanding from my correspondence with the traffic engineer over the last day that, you know, that brown or green within reason would be something that could be approvable.
Because the Park Service brown per se is a copyrighted color. I found that out in reading through the Park Service literature and using it, that you cannot use their specific brown without, well, you can't do it. It's copyrighted. Same thing with their fonts. They have 2 fonts that they use that are Park Service fonts that were developed. So, but there's an awful lot of variations on that brown and variations on those fonts. As a matter of fact, I went to a website that had a whole list of the fonts that are close to the Park Service font, copyrighted font, and that type of thing. So it's pretty technical stuff. So
Well, I do think if we come up with a decision, it sounds like everyone's open to the design option track, then I can work more with our traffic engineer and determine, that answer for you.
okay. Now, what further does the is the design professional looking for from us?
Mary, you're muted.
I just think that we need to give him several images that that are within what we think. I'm looking online right now, and Franklin already has a post with the fennel on it for the Franklin Battlefield and Historic Hiking Trail, and they've interpreted that one in black and white. Then Carnton has a bronzy brown color they seem to be using on site. So I think the next step to make things simple, Rich, is if we could come up with a few signs that are kind of within the family of what we're looking for to give to Signs First.
Did anyone find anything online that I didn't receive anything from anyone?
I've got some here. One idea for a header is I've just been sitting here looking as we've been talking, and there's a thing that looks kind of like I don't know what to say. It looks like kind of a historic ribbon banner shape. And I think it would be good if we decided, if we do a header, what we want that header to be, rather than turn a designer loose. We've got to get, I think if we can get in the family of everything, if we're going to say that some brown or some green, that's getting in the family. If we say some type of unique shape, minimal, that's getting in the family. But I don't think we've gotten in the family on any kind of header. And I think that should be our next work. Do we want to call it, do we want the header to say Civil War Trail, tour, Civil War tour? What do we want? I really don't think we've had that discussion.
We haven't. Let me throw out where my thinking has been with this. I've always thought of a header, one of two things. One is very similar to the sign that Amanda put up for us that had the kind of a rounded top to it.
Mm-hmm.
That type of header gives space to where you could put some nomenclature there, whether it be the city symbol, whether it be a slogan or something or whatever, but it gives a very, I don't know that shape of sign, so to speak, exists in the city of Franklin. And so it would put a unique shape to it. The other style that I was thinking was more that it's square across the top with a bulge at the middle of it to where the city symbol would easily fit in that bulge. And, you know, so it's kind of a, I don't know the terminology, but a bubble top or something like that.
So
to
it'd
where
be
there's
flat across the top with like a circle here. So the logo is partially in that and partially down here. Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Those are the two styles that I've thought about all along. Now that's just me thinking. And that, once again, my vision on this program has been, I wanted something that was not real far out there from a design standpoint, and also something that was easy for the sign shop to manufacture.
So here's the city logo here, in like a white or kind of gray color on a white background. So if you're thinking of the blue, it may not be that's what we have to go with. You could do something like this. It's just a thought.
Mhm.
And this is on the city's website. If you go to even just the main city website and like franklintn.gov, and you'll see it right there.
I mean, those were my thinkings on a header. Now, what goes, if you had the rounded head on the sign, what language, what verbiage goes in that empty space? I think we have not had that discussion. We haven't had the discussion if it's a bubble top and what would go in there. So if that's what's needed, Mary, to talk to the design professional, then we can have that discussion. Anybody else got an idea about shape of sign or that type of thing, or style?
I like the rounded top myself. I feel like we are promoting historic attractions, and typically speaking, whether you're touring throughout the United States or touring throughout Europe, a brown sign indicates historic attractions, generally speaking. Or so I'm with Mary. I like the dark green as well, but I'm just trying to think of clarity for tourists. I mean,
Well,
we have a color, Franklin green, that I've heard coined over the years, that I think like the trash cans are painted a Franklin green. It's almost a black. But
It's
I'm just wondering if
three parts green, 1 part black.
yeah. So I'm wondering if that subtlety would
I
be
think.
lost on tourists. You know what I'm saying?
The thing that I'm more concerned at this point for us, that I'm concerned about more than the color, is do you want something at the top of the sign that says, I don't know what it says, but says Civil War tour or something? Do you want the header instead of just being, I'm just asking this, instead of being the logo for the city of Franklin, do we want to say what you're following? That's my question.
I don't know if we need to say anything at the top. I like the rounded brown sign, maybe with the logo, and less is more sometimes. I think that sign in Chattanooga was just way too cluttered.
Oh,
It was, I like the uniqueness, but I was awful. You couldn't, it was just too much.
too much.
I love our logo. I love that logo, and I love the rounded top. Brown or the Franklin green would be fine with me.
I would add that, so I'm more partial to a brownish color, whatever we thought made sense because of that historic cognizance off the bat. I like the Franklin historic logo, whether it's in a rounded top or it's a, stamp logo in a more designer rounded top, it would be fine with me. And then with respect to logo or phrase, I thought we had discussed, there are multiple things we are directing people to. Some of them are Civil War, some of them are historic sites, some of them are historic district. So I don't know if we could have any consistency at the top based on, I'd rather have the signs be more consistent about the immediate impact is, oh, there's something historic here. Let me look closer and see what that is.
Yeah, I like the idea of having our logo on there, like Steve said, kind of less is more. And if we did want to have something else in there, I don't want to make it too cluttered, but historic Franklin, I mean, that kind of sums it up with
Yeah.
all of the signage that we're putting in. If we did want to go ahead and make somewhat of a banner or something like that with
Yeah,
text.
I think, Megan, I think on some of your brochures or somebody, maybe you remember, there is, well, it's on some of our signs downtown. It's just a little banner that says Historic Franklin. So if we did that instead of the logo, and that was consistent on every single thing, I would be a fan of that. Also, I can appreciate making it more intricate with a bubble, but knowing how signs weather, stay too long, aren't maintained, I guess I would be for simplifying it and just, if we round the top, which I think people seem to like that idea, or just have the banner across the top on the actual metal. I feel like over time it will have a longer, good looking future. The ones that they did recently where they put all those colors and all the pieces on there, and they, within a couple of years, looked awful. So I'm going to
point,
see if
Mary.
I can find that little Historic Franklin banner.
Mary's talking about the ones that she said don't look great anymore are from the last rendition of Wayfinding. I just wanted to point out, this is on, these are the emblems that are put on signs that have been implemented that have streetscape, or streets that have streetscape. Any of the street signs have that little bronze and
Bronze.
black emblem there. This is on Google Street View, so it's not, the easiest to zoom in on, but you can also see it's on the decorative pillars that are located
Yeah.
at intersections through streetscape. So that's just something to keep in mind too, because one of our objectives is to be consistent. So
Yes,
we do want this to be something unique to identify that they are wayfinding signs. I do think trying to tie into some of the other things that the city has done will probably be more successful with BOMA. And it would be more likely that we would have that the ability to get that typecast or whatever it is that we need to do in order to manufacture it in-house.
Well, I will try to find that banner thing of the little straight, clean thing I'm talking about.
Do
and
you know
send it-
where it might be and I could find it?
Yeah, I think it may be on some of the downtown signs already, like parking and things like that.
Okay, because I'm not quite sure I know what you're
Yeah,
speaking.
I'm looking like
I don't
crazy,
remember
but I'm
seeing it.
not.
Yeah.
I wish I'd thought to look for that before this meeting.
Anybody know of those? I'm trying to think through what I've seen downtown, and I can't think of that.
Yeah,
I
can't
can
find
find them. It's very simple.
Simple's good.
Yeah, I was just hopeful we can find a location so I can go ahead and share it with everyone.
I'm trying. Let's see.
What are thoughts about font and color of font while Mary's looking? A similar font to a similar font to what's on the national park sign. Which I'm not sure that we'd want to stray too much from the TDOT standard on font. That's the one piece of TDOT standard that I've not thought that we need to stray far from. The standards on arrows and fonts. We certainly want something that is a very complementary color on the font, the arrow, and that type of thing too, so that the background on the sign and the font really complement each other and the font stands out. But the style of font and that type of thing, I wanted to ask if the committee thought that we want to pursue a font that's different than the TDOT standard. The TDOT standard is that all signs start with a capital letter and then they're small case throughout. The TDOT standard is a closed arrow. The TDOT standard is that it's straight ahead arrows appear first on a sign. Is that right, Amanda? That
Yes.
left turn directions appear second on a sign and right turn
Would follow after that with the
yeah.
arrow to the right. So this, like Adam mentioned, this isn't exactly right, but what it does show is the font.
Yeah, and what's different, what's wrong on that sign is the arrow for Country Music Hall of Fame would be on the right side.
And it would be listed, that site would be listed last.
Right. And those are the standards for TDOT. And I think those fonts are very easy to read. I think that the arrows are very clear. And so I've not thought that we wanted to vary on font and arrow style. TDOT standard is that it has a border, as you see, and I like a border on the sign. But I'm open to discussion on that. So
I agree with you. I'm okay with that font. I mean,
I am too.
unless somebody can point another one, but I'm fine with that.
I do think it's something that our sign shop would be very comfortable doing, and it wouldn't require us to order anything any different than we normally order.
yeah. I mean, I don't know why we'd reinvent the wheel on that if it's something that's really working well, unless somebody's got a good reason.
There's
Like I
a
say, the
lot of
color-
thought that goes into it at a federal and state level, and so it works well. And I agree with Rich. There's no reason to change that. It'd be more likely that we'd have difficulties getting approval for anything else.
Okay. Once again, the color, we want to make sure that the color of the font really works with whatever color the background is so that it stands out and it's there. And so there's all kinds, everybody's painted a wall white and everybody knows there's 600 white colors and such. So, it's finding the right color of font, but that's a different issue.
Well, I think we're all agreeing that we want a dark background with some shade of white to pop it because it's more readable. And that's what TDOT does.
Yes.
That's what our historic district design guidelines recommend. Not that that matters as much, but it kind of does. We want to be consistent with our city's own standards. Can we talk about post?
Yes.
Okay. So Ms. Pierce mentioned, interest in the post that I showed on the example I found online. And, I found this and I liked it because it kind of straddles, the TDOT standards with some, more visual and branding interests. But this is really just my find, and it's not anything I want to necessarily influence you all. But one thing I think when I showed it to Ms. Pierce initially, she was really excited about the polls because they gave a little bit more branding and visual interest to them. Obviously, the polls would be an additional expense. That would be
I
something.
think it depends on where they are, Amanda. I
Mhm.
think as we get into the downtown area, if it's a single post, it would be
Like this one?
amazing. It would be amazing to have something that stepped up a little bit. But what I'm the most interested in seeing happen is a post that has the finial on top, that's a little heavier, that's not, the city has started putting up a lot that are the aluminum, with all the little holes in them.
Mhm.
I'm interested in us doing something that looks thought out. But I
That,
actually think the ones with the two, it looks like you're taking a plunger to me and putting it on two plungers. We can
Okay,
do
well,
the
let's
double one.
not look at this one then. Let's
Yeah.
look at
So,
this one.
what I would.
Because this is more like what we would have actually with the additions on the bottom.
So what I would say is, the streetscape light poles, that kind of look is appealing, kind of creates that historic backdrop, and something that would mirror those, similar, in this genre more than what you typically would see in street signs, but
Mhm.
something that would look like it was, hey, this is part of the historic upgrading of the city, would be a nice complement to it, I think.
And is the black color what
I
everyone's
like it.
interested in?
I like it.
I'm just trying to get information so Mary can give.
Is
Mike's
the
team.
thought that this particular type of post is what we would like downtown, but outside of the downtown historic area, that we let the city put up their standard type post, or we're talking about this for all the signs that we're doing in the city of Franklin?
Well, I think, Rich, which standard post? I think if it's a black painted with the finial on top, yes. If it's one of the aluminum ones with all the holes in it, no.
Because the city standard is one with all the holes in it.
Yes.
It just depends on you can kind of see both things. And I think we just want to make sure that at least the straight post part of it is consistent and the finial on top is consistent on every sign. And then it's situational whether or not you put the, for lack of a better term, the street light post look.
Well, also keep in mind that, the post is really dependent on the shape of the sign. If we were to go with this type of shape, this, having a finial would be excellent. But if it were to have, if it were to be straight with the cutout for the logo on top, then this post would not be appropriate.
That's correct.
So I think that,
So if you all-
maybe our sign professional can make a couple of different renditions for you guys to consider perhaps, or unless you feel strongly about one or the other.
Have you asked the city if they can even achieve doing an applied cutout on the top?
No, because I haven't had that direction from anyone yet.
Well, I think we need to find that out before we go down that road. Because if one of our parameters is that the city can produce it,
When you say applied cutout, can you define that a little more, Mary?
She means the shape you
you would
described.
need what you were describing, Rich.
The
Where it would
bubble,
have the bubble on top.
the bubble type top?
Mhm.
Okay.
That would be a special order, certainly. But this would probably be a special order as well. It's just that this might be something that someone already manufactures in this shape, for example.
I'm less in favor of the bubble top than I am the rounded top. Honestly.
I agree. And I think maybe if that's how everyone feels, just take that off the table right now. And then we have more direction.
So does everyone want the shape that I showed? Like, again, it was just my contribution to the discussion. It's not, what the city's pushing by any means. I just want to make that very clear.
I mean, I like this one that you're showing. I would honestly kind of like to see if we could get a rendition of the one with the logo in it with the kind of the bubble top. And, if we could find some other kind of version or get a recommendation of some kind of version of a pole that would fit well with that. I would be interested just to see it.
I would think that that type of sign, Megan, would just not have a pole that sticks
Wouldn't
up
have anything
above.
on top
Mhm.
because that it's sort of its own decoration on the
Yeah.
sign.
Mhm. But that's certainly something that
When you say
Mary
bubble
can
top,
ask.
I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm having trouble.
Mary, I'll draw it and I will send it to you. It's really more like a actual rectangle, like flat on top with just like in the middle centered would be a semicircle sticking up so that the logo for the city would sit inside it.
Well, we have done a study of signs, and there are 97 signs that we're proposing. All through the city. And so it's 95 signs short of the two that we're proposing to be added on I-65. So 95 signs, and I'm just thinking about as if we did a special post that the city says is $300, that's $28,500 for just post. So let's keep that in mind too. I just wanted to give everybody a perspective of what we've talked about and where we're heading with this. In the downtown core, that may be 40% of those signs are in the downtown core, maybe, Amanda, you think 40?
You want me to pull up the map? And I can give a
Yeah.
better visual sense.
There's a lot of signs in the downtown core, and we'd have to define the downtown core, but it's maybe 50% or 40% of the signs are in the downtown core. I was trying to think from an economic standpoint of dictating to the city the type of sign that we take a sign that goes on Carter's Creek Pike, so to speak, or on Hillsborough Road, and we still have the same style of sign, but go to a square aluminum post as opposed to a $300 post. We may be able to save a considerable amount of money by doing that if we talk to them, but we have to, I certainly agree with Mary from a standpoint of having a very distinctive type sign and post and the whole design concept of the sign, you know, in the downtown core, but I was questioning in my thinking about outside of downtown. What are your
That's my
thoughts?
thought, Rich.
Pardon?
That's my thought.
Okay. Now
Yeah,
we'd have
when
to
you're-
define downtown. I think that would go
Yeah.
down and include Carter House and that type of thing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
Well, it could be the central Franklin area. We have
Yeah.
a geographic overlay defined as central Franklin. And I can show that to you if you guys want to see that now. We'll just take a quick second. So it's,
before we get off the sign itself, Amanda, let me kind of summarize where we are and ask Mary as she's talking to the signs first, if she's got enough information to start to have some conversation with them about this. We've
Sure.
agreed. We've
So,
agreed
yeah,
to-
I just wanted to show you that central overlay really quick. So, because I do think that, you know, it's important to get a sense of where that area is that you want those posts. And I'm still not quite sure what the posts are proposed to be outside of that. Because it sounded like Ms. Pierce had recommended against the typical, but that's what we define as central Franklin. It may be a little bigger than you guys were anticipating, but this is Machatcher on the north side. And this is Columbia Avenue. Maybe we include the frontages of Columbia Avenue as well. But it's mostly, you know, the area where we're going to have the majority of the signs.
Mhm.
It's typically inside 397 is Machatcher, so it's typically inside Machatcher. It stops at, you know, the frontage of Hillsborough Road, and then it takes into account everything to the east of Jim Warren, going down toward. Trying to see what this street is. I
The
can't
Battle
remember.
Avenue or
I believe
Downs.
that's Downs.
Downs? Okay.
But the only reason that Columbia Avenue is not included in there is because we have a different design standard for that corridor. So we could include that in this as well and stop it at Downs, or even go down to Machatcher, which would be right here. So at Winston Hill, Target. So that's just a general idea.
Okay.
the only other information I think we need is, guess what, y'all? I found a bubble, what I think is a bubble type that has a logo up in the bubble. And I actually think you could still use the same post. If you all would look at it's not,
I'll pull it up.
it's Fort Wayne Civil War Historic Site sign.
I'm not going to ask how she found this.
She Google image searches. I've started doing it too.
Images.
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna pull
spend
it up
my
for you
life
guys right
doing
now.
it. It's my favorite thing on the world to do.
I've learned from her how to find these things. Okay, that's how I found the one I shared with you guys today. Just Google's image. You have to play around with the terms you put
You
in.
do.
Though.
And I'm looking at, let me see if I can share this with you.
So
when I
this is it, right, Mary?
When I hit on it to share it with you, it is, let me take a picture of it.
Is this it that I'm showing?
Let me see. Can you, your picture's over the top? Yes, yes. Is that what you're calling a bubble?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not as pronounced as I was imagining when Rich described it, but yeah, I think this is exactly what he's talking about.
Well, I think that with the city logo is certainly an option.
It's definitely very
Now,
visual.
we wouldn't have that big map or any of that, you know.
No,
Right.
it would just be words. but-
I'm just talking shape. How does the committee feel about that shape?
Let's see if I can find one that doesn't.
I think
have
that can
a-
work. I like having the logo embedded in some form.
I
Yeah,
do
I
too. I
agree.
like that.
I like that.
Yeah, same here. I'm with Bob on that.
Do you like what Fort Wayne did with the border, the white line around it? The way they bordered the sign?
I think that's what a TDOT requirement, so it actually would work really well if we were to do something like that.
It's sort of.
I'm
it
a
frames it.
fan. I
It
think it
frames
hits
it.
your eye.
I think so too, and it frames it, draws your eye to it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good, Mary. I like that.
Okay. So can you all see that? Let me see how to say this. TDOT and the National Park Service use brown. If we took that red they have and kept going toward brown, it would be like a dark kind of a barn red court color. And I personally still see that as an option.
Oh, almost like a terracotta,
No,
like a
darker.
a darker terracotta.
Yeah, or a brown red, I guess. They
Brown.
usually call it barn red when you're looking at roofing samples or something like that.
So
Right.
Mary, this would be too brown,
No, that's what I'm talking.
bronze brown. Okay, I got it.
What does everybody think of that?
I can read Mary very well, as you can tell. We worked together a long time.
I think what I'm wondering is if we had, if we're good with that shape, if we know we want the National Park Service lettering, if we know we want the City of Franklin logo and we want a border around it, then it would be no great shakes for him to pop in the 3 different colors, if y'all are okay with considering all of those. The dark Franklin green, the National Park Service brown, but get a little bit off so they don't sue us, and then getting a little more brown red. Is that fair?
Fine with me.
Yeah, I'd like to see all of those colors.
Okay. And are we thinking this shape of Fort Wayne because it would what's the word? Make the city logo look like a natural pop in.
Right. I think that would be a great selling point for the BOMA, that it is
Yeah.
branded for Franklin, and it's not, like someone had mentioned here that, some of our sites aren't Civil War specific.
Yeah, I think we're going to be interpreting a bigger history going
Right,
forward. So
right.
why limit it just to Civil War, Amanda?
I understand.
And then do we agree that we're gonna look at a more intricate post in the area that Amanda if you all trust Amanda to figure that out. We'll have a plain pole some places, and in the ones that staff sees as a historian could be a little more intricate, we would suggest those.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Then I think we're rich. We have enough.
okay, good.
Thank
And
you very much, Mary, for working with a design professional. We really appreciate it.
yeah, I think, yeah, I'm happy with that whole scenario as you laid out there. And I like looking at the 3 different colors, so to speak, with complementary and then possibly variations on the color of the font, depending on the color of
Right,
the background.
right. But for the human eye, it's going to read in that white category.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement?
We're
Anybody?
amazing, guys. We're freaking amazing to be here.
We are. Now, I just want to ask the question, does anyone have any comment regarding that, or is everyone in agreement with what Mary described there? I hear nothing. so I
I'm in
assume that-
agreement. I have no
I'm
comment.
in agreement.
I'm in
Okay.
agreement.
I
Great,
agree.
move forward.
Oh,
Excellent. We have about 10 minutes left. Let me give you an update on the second part of the meeting, which was supposed to be just about 15 minutes of discussion. Where we are with the sign map or the story map. Everyone got the link of that yesterday. We are in the, Amanda and I have gone through every sign that we think is appropriate in all the discussion that we've had for these last 2 years in laying out signs. The two of us are pretty clear on what goes on each sign and where that sign will be. We've started to put those into the story map. The story map it's a work in progress right now. What you're
I
seeing.
think it's mostly
and what we
complete, actually, as of yesterday. I want to give a shout out to Elaine Ellis. She's done an amazing job inputting this on behalf of the planning department. She put in all the information, and Andrew Southern, who put the map together for us. So I can't take any credit for that, but I think everything's in as of yesterday, which I know that it's new info, Rich. So we'll have to go through and check everything.
Yeah, the big thing here, and yes, absolutely, a lot of effort on the part of those fine people. What you're seeing here, the big thing is you can look at the labeling that we've identified. New sign, existing sign to be, we got our number, well, existing sign to be refaced, existing sign to be removed, existing sign to remain, an existing sign to be replaced. There's an uncategorized classification right now, and those are questions that exist. When this is finalized, that will disappear, the white sign, because there won't be an uncategorized sign in the final. So you can see the labeling, you can see the categories. Each sign has the ability for us to put a priority on the signs. We've talked about putting a priority on each sign so
can
that we
see
have a
here.
priority 1, 2, and 3 on the signs. So we can phase this program. But you can see the total methodology that we've got for the entire story map here. What I'm going to ask for the committee, and hopefully we can do this before the April 20th meeting, is we can put a final draft of the wayfinding map together for the subcommittee before the next meeting. And then we'll send that out hopefully about mid-month, so everybody has an opportunity to go through and look at each sign and that type of thing. So that's going to be homework for everyone. What I'd like to do at the April meeting, and hopefully we can accomplish this before the April meeting, what I'd like to do, if that's the case, is have an open discussion, much like we had today, about the signs. To where somebody says, I don't think that that's the right, I look at the sign that's at X spot and I don't think that says what it should say or whatever, but we don't have the time as a subcommittee, I think, to go through every one of the signs. But I'd look for the subcommittee to come back and question a particular sign, or why is that sign exist, and that type of thing, so that we have a general discussion about the sign program and what's on each of the signs. Then we can go back and make changes after the discussion in the May meeting. And then we, at the May meeting, would put priorities to the signs. You know, a priority 1, 2, and 3. The kind of the thinking that Amanda and I have had about the priorities are that if we're doing a sign, there's already an existing sign that's there, that it has, and we're basically replacing it with a new style sign, that it goes at a lower priority because, you know, it's not the extreme importance of a sign in a certain location because there's already one there. So that goes at a lower priority. We've talked about routes that would have a higher priority and that type of thing. All of that is food for thought as we go through this thing and try to prioritize. We think that BOMA is going to come out and say, you know, you really ought to plan on this being implemented across 3 years or maybe 5 years or something like that. And so the need for a priority on the signs is important in the long run. So that's our challenge going forward. We will clean up this map. Everybody has an opportunity to look at it now and understand what's been done. There are some signs that are just in the wrong location, as I noted, and they may have been cleaned up by now. But take that for a grain of salt, but at least you see the progress as we're moving forward.
Right. And I still have some questions too. I don't feel comfortable with the to be refaced because I don't think that, you know, given our conversations the last couple of meetings, that we'll really have anything that's to be refaced per se. But I think it's more about showing that there's a sign there and we're not creating a new sign as much as replacing with a new style sign. So that's something I'll
That
talk
comes
through
down
with
to where
Rich.
we go with a new design.
Right.
Certainly you can't reface. If we change the design completely, you can't reface any sign
Right.
that we have.
But the cool thing about the public link I sent you is you can toggle and turn some, you know, only have one category on or a couple of categories on. So feel free to do that. Yeah, I can't stress to you enough what Rich suggested going through. This is a whole lot of work. As you guys know, you put in a lot of work. Rich and the people who have been inputting in the map have done a lot of work. So anything that you can do to help us, you know, determine priorities would be extremely helpful because, you know, dividing and conquering is the goal and is the method to success.
So how many new signs? 97?
97 total, Steve.
I
97
wonder-
signs.
Not
Two of
97
those-
new, yeah.
2 of those are on the interstate, so 95 signs.
Great presentation of that map. That's just awesome. I wonder if BOMA is gonna not, if they're gonna reject so many new signs. I just wonder about that.
Well, some of that, I think, comes down to talking to them about statistics.
Yep.
How many signs exist, talking to them about the inconsistency of signs and that type of thing. Talking about where the wayfinding leads to now versus what we're going to lead people to in the future and that type of thing. So a lot of that is a sales presentation, certainly.
Rich, how many signs are there now?
I think there are 40,
Mhm.
maybe 45.
Well, I would agree with Steve that will be a hurdle for us of
That's a
putting
tough-
twice as many signs as we have now.
Well,
will.
if you could go through and look at them as you have time, maybe even, you know, pledge to look at a certain corridor and decide, hey, do you really think this one is a high priority or a low priority? Then maybe we can go from there and figure out how to move forward. I do hate to cut everyone off. I have to use the Zoom account in 2 minutes for another meeting.
Well, I think we've covered everything. Does anyone have anything else before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I would just say the argument for Bowman is greater clarity. We're going to be adding signs, but we're going to have a much better experience for our citizens and our visitors with the new signs.
Absolutely, Pam.
You're here.
And Megan can speak to that because she has to deal with the tourists that don't know where they're going. She can kind of corroborate that.
Well said. Okay, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Pam
Thank
and
you,
Bob.
Nick.
Okay, Steve,
Second.
you want to adjourn?
Yes.
Thank you. Pam,
Yes, please.
Mary,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
and I vote. Thank you all. Very good meeting. Mary, thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Amanda.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Y'all too.
Bye.
Happy Easter.